Welcome to How I VS Code with AL. Hey, I'm Eric, and on popular demand, I'll try to make a video here where I kind of walk through how I use VS Code with AL. I think actually I am not a bells and whistles kind of guy, so there's a few things that I use, and I use them a lot. And you see me all the time using it, but I might not actually explain what I'm doing in detail. So in this video, I'm going to do that. I'm going to show you what I have in my VS Code and so on. We might as well get started. And you know that I am a lover of the command line. And quite often I end up, the way I start VS Code is from the command line. So right now you can see that here I'm in a folder that has an app in it. We can see that there's clearly an app. There's app.json or add-in or VS Code and stuff like that. So if I want to open this app in VS Code, I simply do code space dot. Code starts VS Code. The parameter to VS Code is the folder. So if I had another folder, I could start typing out the folder name. But in case that I want to open VS Code in the folder I'm in, that is just a dot. So I hit that, and VS Code is loaded in the folder of my app. So the normal screen layout of VS Code is kind of that we have three things that are all fighting for space. So we have the let's open a file. This guy. So we have a piece of source code. That's the main attraction. That's why we're here. VS Code is glorified editor. This is Notepad on steroids. So this has to be the premier spot. So the first two things that I find myself using all the time is, again, keyboard warrior. So Control B open and closes the folder thing, and Control J opens and closes the panes with the output and stuff like that. So those are kind of the two first hotkeys that I use all the time, because maybe I need to see the code, and maybe I need to go somewhere else. So Control B and Control J. Sometimes almost like a single thing, and sometimes I need the files, but I want the entire vertical space for my for the source code. And depending on whether you guys are looking with me or am I looking alone, quite often the Control minus to zoom out, because in reality this is a web browser. VS Code is an Electron app, so what you're seeing here is rendered by Chromium of some sort. So you can do the zoom thing and get in and out really quick. And maybe it's because I am old that I used to work like this, and now I work like this. But whatever zoom level is good for you. So and sometimes I find myself actually zooming in, because there's the idea of a distraction-free view, and sometimes you're just gonna really see what's going on. So I find myself zooming in and out all the time, depending on what I'm doing. But right now we're just as an editor. This is just an editor. What makes VS Code special is that you can enhance VS Code with extensions, and I know the word extension is really weird, because you're adding an extension into VS Code in order to build an extension for Business Central, but that's how it is. And over on the left side, so if I do Control B again, we can see that we have multiple icons on this side. And we get the files with all my stuff. We have a search function. We'll get back to that in a second. We have source control, get back to that. Debugger, get back to that. What I wanted to focus on is this one, extensions. And this one will show you, and actually let's make this wider. So this one will show you all the extensions that you have installed and stuff that Microsoft decides to recommend you. And I don't know why I need Google Cloud Code, but maybe I do. Anyway, I ignore recommendations. And you can see that I have 12 extensions installed, and let's take a look at that. So the very first one and the most important extension is the AL language extension for Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central. The name is so long that it won't fit up here. Maybe if we use zoom out. And you can see that right now I am running version 11, so which is the latest, 11.0. I could switch to a pre-release and then actually get version 12 of the AL language if I want to do that, but I don't want to do that right now. So the AL language is responsible for all the AL stuff. Compiling and deploying and debugging, all those things is handled by the AL language extension. So in reality, this one is all you need. When you have that one, you can do anything. And I think that's important to remember, actually, because I've seen somebody who has installed 30, 40 different extensions and they don't know which one is doing what and why they have them, but they installed every extension that was something with BC or AL, and I don't think that's usable. Anyway, so I have two community AL extensions installed. I have the AZAL from Andres, which ASAL dev tool / AL code outline. And this is a treasure trove of good things. You might have seen me all the time, clicking on an app file, aka symbols, and I get the nice symbol browser. I get that from this guy. Andres is just doing this as a free app, and it is very good and it's highly recommended. Then Andres have a dependency on Waldo's language extension, so he's using stuff from Waldo's extension. So somewhere down here, that one is also installed. Not because I really need Waldo's extension for anything, but Andres is using it. So the other one, so in my mind, I'm using two extensions. So the other one is the AL code actions, and AL code actions I use mainly to convert code to a procedure. So I can select some code and extract it to a new procedure, and it will figure out what variables are needed and stuff like that. That's really, really cool. So those are the two I use. Then you can see that, but that will only, if we're counting, then now we're on 4. But in reality, there's a few more. So I'm using a color scheme called Dracula. So when you see my code with whatever colors this is, that color scheme is called Dracula. And I actually think right now I have two different versions of this installed, but that's the colors I kind of like. Then I have something called CodeViz Stat, which is a great function that will maybe we should just run it and see if we can. Where is my app? CodeViz. I don't use it that often, so every time I need to figure out how to open it. This is a very simple one, but it will tell you how many files, line counts, and file counts, and stuff like that. This is mainly for the line count. Sometimes it's nice to see how many lines there is in something, so that's mainly why I use that one. Creates a summary and stuff like that. Then right now I have the GitHub Copilot running, the AI that tries to be clever. I am still on the fence with this one, but I'm running it right now. Quite often I turn it off. I am also running a extension called Git Lens. So Git Lens adds functionality to the source control thing. I'll show that in a second. So without that, we have simple source control. With this one, we can look at branches and easier way to do merges and so on. I think there was actually a video on this one specifically on the channel somewhere. Paste image is an extension I use for writing the there it is, the field guide. So I write that in Markdown. So I actually write the book in VS Code, and then I can grab screenshots and paste them into Markdown where they become the file, and then it adds in the Markdown syntax for accessing that file. So that's kind of neat. Another code counter, and right now I have an XML formatting tool installed. So I've seen people who have hundreds of all sorts of different things installed. I try not to. You can see that the milliseconds here are the cost of loading this. So if your VS Code is suddenly slow, go in and see, but hang on, what extensions are spending too much time starting. And the last one here is actually added by Git Lens. So this one makes a lot of noise here. There's no repo in this one, so maybe we'll select another repo in another app in a second. So when I have the L language, AZAL, and David's code actions, I'm good to go. That's all I need to be productive in AL. But VS Code is kind of weird. So let's go back to and actually do something here. So VS Code is kind of weird because there is a menu, and depending on your zoom level, it might be up here, or it might move around as we just saw. But I find myself rarely using the menu up here. Sure, if I need to open a file, I can remember to hit Control O and so on. But all the power of VS Code is sitting in what is known as the command palette. And we can say view, and then we can open the command palette. But you don't want to do that with mouse. You want to do it Control Shift P. Boom, there's your command palette. And as soon as it's the greater than sign, then you're in command mode. If you remove that, then you're into search mode, and if you put a colon, then you're into navigation mode, where we can say 54, and then we are jumping to line 54. If you're in the command palette, you can type stuff. We could say download symbols. So now we're calling an AL function to download symbols. We could say AL publish, debug while publish no in the designer, publish full dependency. You see there's a bunch of different rapid publish. So there's a bunch of different things, but all this why did I say funny? All the functions that you use a lot have a shortcut key. So you can see publish with debugging F5, all the different modes. One I find quite often is the Shift Control B to just build without publish. What you'll see here is that now we got VS counter arrows here saying that there's txt files that the AL compiler does not know how to do, so it's just don't know what to do with, so it's just kind of ignoring that one. But let's put in a bug. Let's put a plus here. That's a good bug. So the way the AL compiler works is that it's constantly compiling the code. So you don't have to build. So when I'm building here, that's kind of because I'm an old geezer who like to also compile. But in reality, you saw as soon as I created a bug in my code, I got a compiler error. So the way the AL compiler works is just like, oh, that's the wrong way to tell that. So Microsoft back, I don't know, I should know this, I was there 2016, 17, 18, I can't even remember. They open sourced what is known as Roslyn, the C# compiler, the new C# compiler, and it is a compiler as a service, and it can do incremental compilations. So right now there is a source tree maintained that right now we know we have something that's wrong and something that's good. So if I go in and change something, it figures out how much do I need to compile. Do I only need to compile this one line to be up to date, or do I need to compile more and less and so on? So it's constantly looking at that. So what you're getting here is not some pseudo result. This is actually the result of compilation. So we can see the operator plus cannot be applied, and if I do the Control Shift B and compile it, I get the same thing here when it's running through and compiling the whole thing in bulk. Sometimes you can run into a situation where this get out of sync, where the editor is behind the compiler, is behind the editor. You made changes that it just gets confused. So up in the command palette, there is a function called developer reload window. You hit that, you're reloading, you're kind of resetting the environment. You see that behind my face here, it's now loading the AL compiler and loading the app in that one. And I find that, especially working on bigger apps, that sometimes just I do something and then it gets completely out of sync. If you do global operations like switching a branch or doing copying files from outside into the folder or stuff like that, then the compiler relies on VS Code telling what has been changed. So if you're changing without actually doing through VS Code, the compiler can get confused, and that's where the reload window function come in. I have the what is it that they call this? Let me actually. There's the minimap. Yeah, sorry. I have it shown on screen. I rarely use it. Sometimes I do. It's actually, to see where you got errors. Might often, if you're in a bigger thing, is good, but mostly because source code is vertical, and it doesn't really. It takes up a lot of space on this side, but it's cheap space because it's not vertical space. Anyway, time is flying, and I want to show one more thing. So another function that I use all the time is Control R. So you see now we're getting a bunch of recently used apps here, and let's grab something interesting. BCCL. How about that one? I'm working on BCCL right now because I am actually adding support. That's a secret, by the way. I am adding support for BCCL, connecting directly to a Microsoft SQL server and copy data from SQL directly into BC in the cloud. More on that later. And now you can see that the thing. So I'll do my at least Control J to get this one away. Maybe I still need to look at files where I need to go. So now we can see that I have 19 changes. So there's lots of stuff going on right here, all over the place. But because I have Gitlins installed, I also have my my branches. Right now I just have two, one called OAuth and master. So OAuth is the one I'm doing stuff in right now. I can look at history and so on, and work with stashes and all the Git stuff directly from in here. I want to mention the search function also. So when you're in your app, let's go somewhere, a mapping request. You can always right click on something and go to definition. And it will take you to, that was actually a bad example. Here, I can hit F12. I can hit F12. No, I can't, because now I turned F12 into page down. I can hit F12 now, and I go to that one. Sometimes the go to definition is kind of slow. So I find myself using quite often, I need to find this guy. So I mark it and I hit Shift Control F, which activates this guy, and then I kind of find where used, sort of. I could also go to this one's find out references, and I get a smarter version of that. But sometimes that one is just slow, so I find myself just going to the search function. And the search function works in two ways. So you got Shift Control F, that will take you to this one. Shift Control H, then you have global search and replace in all files. And And the difference between F and H in this case is whether this one is toggled or not. So it's the same tool. Oh yeah, I should mention all the stuff I'm pressing. I'm just pressing keys this time. Control W will close a file. Control Shift T, just like it will reopen a closed tab in a browser, it will also reopen a closed file in the editor here, which is pretty nice. What else can we say? I think so. Yeah. As the very last thing, so the setup of the setup of VS Code happens in settings, which is kind of natural. And there's a fancy interface, and if we open up extensions, we can find settings that, and I hit Control B to get in, we can find settings that is specific for extensions. It's not all settings that are necessarily shown in the in the UI. So you can hit edit in settings.json, and then we can see that, for instance, here I have turned on the semantic highlighting, so I get nicer source highlighting of what is a parameter and what is a variable, and so on. And all that stuff happens, not all the stuff, but a lot of this only happens in the settings file. There's another video on these things. And yeah, bunch of stuff happens in here if you really want. So for instance, I got really tired of the GitHub Copilot suggesting stuff when I open a TXT file just to edit it and keep notes. And Markdown was not helping in Markdown. So right now I have it only turned on for C# and AL. Anyway, I think that concludes almost half an hour of how I VS Code with AL. You'll find there's a bunch of other extensions, and people are doing all sorts of fancy things. But I think it's important that you find the tools that you like and that actually adds value in the way you work. And don't just install everything because everything is available. Figure out what you need and keep your VS Code tidy. Only have extensions installed that you actually need, because as you can see, they all cost. There's no free extensions other than color schemes. So that's it. If you want to see more AL hacking, this is the video you want to check out. It's chosen specifically for you by the almighty YouTube algorithm. I'll see you there. Take care. Bye.